Welcome, friends. Today we are going to discuss a very interesting and frankly a bit confusing question regarding flight physics. Let's imagine we have two planes, one with really large wings and the other with comparatively smaller wings. So here's the big question. Will the airplane with the larger wings necessarily have greater longitudinal static stability?
That's a classic aerodynamics question, Shanti, and it's one where intuition often leads people astray. At first glance, most people would immediately think, yes, of course, if the wing is larger, it generates more lift, so the plane remains more stable. It seems logical, right? But the correct answer is no, that isn't always the case.
Oh, really? That's quite a revelation. So simply increasing the wing size doesn't automatically mean a corresponding increase in the plane's stability? What's the correct logic then? What are we missing?
The common assumption is a fatal misconception, as our hook suggested. The critical factor isn't just wing size. If we look at the core principles, the correct understanding is encapsulated by this. An aircraft achieves more longitudinal static stability if the aerodynamic center of the larger wing is positioned behind the center of gravity of the airplane. Size alone does not guarantee stability. It's about the relative position of these two crucial points.
Wow, that sounds quite technical, Om. Aerodynamic center behind the center of gravity. Could you break that down for us in much simpler terms? What exactly is the role of the center of gravity and this aerodynamic center we're talking about?
Absolutely. Let's start with the basics. You see, there are two crucial invisible points on an airplane that dictate its stability. The first is the center of gravity, or CG. This is essentially the theoretical point where the aircraft's entire weight is considered to act. Imagine if you could balance the entire plane on the tip of your finger. That point would be its CG.
Okay, so the CG is where all the weight is concentrated, the balance point. That makes sense intuitively. And the aerodynamic center, or AC?
Right. The aerodynamic center, or AC, is a bit more abstract. It's a specific point on the wing where, crucially, the pitching moment, that's the rotational force trying to pitch the nose up or down, remains constant regardless of changes in the wing's angle of attack. Or, to put it even more simply, it's where the change in lift force, due to a change in the angle of attack, effectively acts.
Okay, so CG is the overall weight pivot, and AC is specifically where changes in lift force tend to apply their turning effect. So we have the weight acting at the CG and the lift, specifically, changes in lift acting around the AC. What happens when these 2 points interact in flight?
Now, this is where the magic, or the physics, happens. Imagine our airplane is cruising along, nice and level, and then a sudden gust of wind comes along and nudges its nose slightly upward. This increases the wing's angle of attack. When the angle of attack increases, the wing generates extra lift. The entire game of stability depends on where this extra lift is effectively acting in relation to the CG.
I see. So what happens in the scenario where the aerodynamic center, that point where the extra lift acts, is located behind the center of gravity?
Excellent question. If that larger wing's aerodynamic center is behind the CG, that extra lift generated by the increased angle of attack will act behind the aircraft's balance point. This creates a powerful nose-down moment, a rotational force that pushes the nose of the plane back down. We call this a restoring moment because it immediately works to bring the aircraft back to its original level flight attitude. This self-correcting action is what essentially increases stability.
So it's like a built-in self-righting mechanism. The bigger the wing, the more lift it generates when the angle of attack changes even slightly, and if that increased lift is behind the CG, the stronger and faster that restoring force will be, bringing the plane back to level flight. That's incredibly clever.
Exactly. Think of it like pushing a heavy object. A larger wing generates a proportionally larger change in lift for the same change in angle of attack. If this amplified change in lift acts behind the CG, it creates a much stronger restoring torque. This makes the aircraft much more eager to return to its original attitude, making it highly stable. This is precisely what we mean by positive longitudinal static stability.
And conversely, if the larger wing's aerodynamic center were positioned ahead of the center of gravity, that would spell serious trouble, wouldn't it?
Catastrophic trouble, Shanti. If the AC were ahead of the CG, that extra lift generated by the increased angle of attack would create a nose-up moment around the CG. This would pitch the nose up even further, creating a runaway effect. The more it pitches up, the more lift is generated ahead of the CG, pitching it up even more, making the plane completely unstable, a recipe for disaster, potentially leading to a crash.
That's a truly fascinating and critical concept. It means simply having a large wing isn't enough. Its aerodynamic center must be located behind the plane's center of gravity for inherent stability. The size just amplifies the effect, for better or worse.
You've absolutely nailed it! It's not just about the absolute size, it's the delicate balance of position and distance between these 2 points that makes the flight safe and stable. This is formally described by the stability equation, where the change in pitching moment coefficient with respect to the angle of attack must be negative, meaning an upward pitch must generate a restoring nose-down moment. This condition is primarily met when the AC is aft of the CG.
So, if this balance is so incredibly crucial, how do aircraft designers ensure it in every plane they build? I mean, how do they achieve this incredibly delicate dance between the CG and the AC in the real world?
That, Shanti, is where the brilliance and meticulousness of aircraft design truly shine. For most conventional aircraft, especially the commercial airliners we all fly in, the wings are deliberately designed and placed on the fuselage so that their aerodynamic center is naturally positioned behind the center of gravity. This design choice gives them what we call positive static stability.
So, passenger planes are inherently designed to be stable, almost like a self-balancing toy? That's actually incredibly reassuring to know.
Absolutely. If a disturbance, like a sudden gust of wind, pushes them off course, they naturally tend to return to their original flight attitude without much, if any, pilot input. Beyond just wing placement, designers also heavily rely on the horizontal tailplane, or the horizontal stabilizer, which you see at the very back of the aircraft. This tailplane also generates lift or downward force, and it has its own aerodynamic center. It acts like a crucial lever, providing an additional pitching moment to fine-tune the overall stability.
Ah, so the tail isn't just for steering left and right or for decoration, it's an active participant in this stability game, constantly helping to balance the aircraft longitudinally.
Very much so. For instance, the conventional aft tail design, which was referenced in our initial technical statement, is the most common configuration precisely because it offers such effective control over longitudinal stability. The tail effectively works to counteract any unwanted pitching tendencies, making the ride smoother and safer.
That makes total sense for airliners. But what about aircraft that look quite different, like fighter jets? They seem to be designed for extreme agility and maneuverability, not necessarily just inherent stability. Do they follow the same rules, or is there a different philosophy at play?
That's an excellent follow-up question, Shanti, and it highlights a crucial distinction in aircraft design. While most commercial aircraft prioritize inherent stability for passenger comfort and safety, many modern fighter jets are actually designed to be aerodynamically unstable or marginally stable in their natural state.
Unstable? That sounds incredibly dangerous and counterintuitive for something that flies at such high speeds and performs complex maneuvers. Why on earth would designers intentionally make an aircraft unstable?
For extreme maneuverability, Shanti, an unstable aircraft is inherently highly responsive. Even a tiny input from the pilot or a minor atmospheric disturbance can cause a large and rapid change in its attitude. This extreme sensitivity makes them incredibly agile, allowing them to turn, roll, and change direction far more rapidly than a stable aircraft, which is absolutely critical for aerial combat and high-performance aerobatics.
So, if they're naturally unstable, how do pilots actually fly them without crashing? They can't possibly rely on human reflexes alone to make thousands of corrections every second, can they?
You're absolutely right. Human reflexes aren't fast enough. This is where advanced technology like fly-by-wire systems and sophisticated flight computers become indispensable. These systems constantly monitor the aircraft's attitude, airspeed, and control surface positions, making thousands of tiny, instantaneous adjustments every second to maintain controlled flight.
Wow. So the pilot provides the general command, I want to turn left and climb, and the computer then translates that into the precise stable movements required, even though the aircraft itself is designed for instability. In a way, the computer acts as the stability brain for those agile jets, allowing the physical design to focus purely on maneuverability.
Precisely. It's a fundamental design trade-off. Inherent stability often comes at the expense of maneuverability, and vice versa. Engineers make very conscious decisions based on the aircraft's intended purpose. For an airliner, safety, passenger comfort, and fuel efficiency from stable flight are paramount. For a fighter jet, agility and responsiveness for combat are the absolute key drivers.
That's a complete flip from the passenger plane approach. You mentioned earlier that the center of gravity can actually shift during flight. How significant is that movement, and what do pilots or systems do to manage it? Because that sounds like another layer of complexity.
It's incredibly significant, Shanti. Every aircraft has a strictly defined CG envelope, a precise range within which the CG must remain for safe and stable flight. Fuel burn is a major factor here. As fuel is consumed, especially from tanks located in the wings or various fuselage sections, the aircraft's weight distribution changes, and so does its CG. Cargo aircraft deal with this challenge constantly, as their load changes significantly between takeoff and landing.
So, if cargo isn't loaded correctly, or if passengers suddenly all move to one end of the plane, it could actually push the center of gravity outside that safe envelope and make the plane unstable?
Absolutely. Improper loading of passengers, luggage, or freight can indeed move the CG outside its safe operating envelope, directly leading to stability issues or even making the aircraft unflyable. This is why loadmasters and pilots are so incredibly meticulous about weight and balance calculations before every single flight. In some very large aircraft, fuel can even be transferred between different tanks during flight to actively manage and adjust the CG.
That's another layer of complexity I hadn't even considered. It's not just about the initial design, it's also about the continuous, real-time operational management of these critical balance points throughout a flight. Mind-blowing.
Precisely. And while the aerodynamic center's position is largely fixed by the wing's design, its sweep, airfoil shape, and its attachment point on the fuselage, the center of gravity is a dynamic, moving target that demands constant awareness and management from the flight crew and aircraft systems.
You mentioned longitudinal static stability a few times. What does the static part imply? Is there another kind of stability, like dynamic stability?
That's a fantastic question, Shanti, and it's an important distinction. Static stability refers to the initial tendency of an aircraft to return to its original equilibrium after being disturbed. If it immediately tries to return to its original state, it's statically stable. If it diverges further from that state, it's statically unstable. If it just stays in the new, disturbed position, it's statically neutral.
Okay, so static stability is all about that very first reaction. What happens after that initial response? How does the aircraft behave over time?
That's exactly where dynamic stability comes into play. Dynamic stability describes how the aircraft behaves over time after that initial disturbance. A statically stable aircraft might still be dynamically unstable if, after the initial restoring force, it starts oscillating with increasing amplitude, getting wilder and wilder.
So it's like a pendulum? You push it and it swings back. But if the swings get bigger and bigger instead of settling down, even though it initially tried to return, it's dynamically unstable?
You've got the perfect analogy. For a truly well-behaved and stable aircraft, it needs to be both statically and dynamically stable. After being disturbed, it should not only initially try to return, but also gradually dampen out any oscillations over time, eventually settling back to its original, steady equilibrium state. That's the hallmark of a comfortable and safe flight.
So, when we talk about a larger wing and its AC being behind the CG, that primarily addresses the static part, ensuring that immediate initial restoring force. The dynamics then build on that crucial foundation, determining how smoothly it recovers.
That's absolutely right. Static stability is an essential prerequisite for good dynamic stability. If you don't have that initial tendency to correct, the dynamic behavior will almost certainly be problematic and difficult to control. It's the first critical hurdle in designing a stable aircraft.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive into aircraft stability. My initial layman's assumption that bigger wings mean a more stable plane has been completely shattered and replaced with a much more nuanced and utterly fascinating understanding.
That's the true beauty of aerodynamics, Shanti. It often defies simple intuition. What seems obvious on the surface can be profoundly complex and incredibly intricate underneath. It's a field full of subtle yet critical details.
And the ultimate key takeaway here is really that it's all about the sophisticated interplay between the center of gravity and the aerodynamic center, and precisely where that change in lift effectively acts in relation to the aircraft's balance point. Wing size, it turns out, is secondary to meticulous placement and careful balance.
Absolutely. While a larger wing amplifies the effect of lift, it's the position of its AC relative to the CG that determines whether that amplification is for good, enhancing stability, or for ill, causing instability. It's a profound testament to the meticulous engineering and deep understanding of physics that goes into every single aircraft we see fly overhead.
So, next time I'm looking out the window of a plane, I won't just be looking at the size of the wings. I'll be thinking about that invisible, intricate dance between the CG and AC, working tirelessly to keep us all safely and smoothly in the air. It truly gives you a new appreciation for flight.
That's the spirit, Shanti. It is an invisible dance indeed, a continuous ballet guided by fundamental physics, brilliant engineering, and constant vigilance. It's what makes flight possible and, crucially, safe.
Thank you so much, for breaking down such a complex and vital topic into something so clear, understandable, and incredibly engaging. This has been truly enlightening for me, and I'm sure for all our listeners.
My absolute pleasure, Shanti. I always enjoy sharing the marvels and intricacies of flight and aerodynamics. There's so much more to it than meets the eye.
And And thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on this fascinating journey into the science of aircraft stability. We hope you've gained a brand new appreciation for what keeps those magnificent machines so stable and secure in the sky. Until next time, fly safe and keep looking up.